This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC is one game away from going to the Final Four in the NCAA women's basketball. New York, LSU and Iowa, a rematch of last year's national championship game and a showdown between the game's top two stars, LSU's Angel Reese and Iowa's Caitlin Clark. 4 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. LeBron had a career-high 9 three-pointers in the Lakers win in Brooklyn. LeBron finished with 40 points. The Clippers got 41 from Paul George to help get a win at Charlotte. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what politics is supposed to produce.
This election year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the place for politics, unapologetically progressive politics. And we've got two of the best and brightest to help you cut through all the noise. Weekdays at 1 p.m., it's A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Corte. And at 4 p.m., it's Areva Martin in Real Time. He's the university professor and distinguished member of the White House Correspondents Association. She's a best-selling author and Harvard-trained civil rights lawyer. And they are both here every day to help guide you through all the this year, because you know it's going to get deep. Get your politics on weekday afternoons at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. with A More Perfect Union, hosted by Dr. Nee Corte and Areva Martin in Real Time, only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your flag.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, the legendary Chuck D is back to talk about, well, whatever Mr. Chuck wants to talk about. Our conversations always cover a broad array of subject matter, but we will certainly get his reflections on the legacy of the progressive radio network Air America 20 years after its launch. Ultimately, the network did not survive. It may have been just ahead of its time, but it certainly helped to advance the careers of names we all know today: Al Franken, Rachel Maddow, Mark Maron, Janine Garofalo, and Chuck D was there too. And so we'll talk to Chuck D today in hour two. In our third hour, we'll talk politics and more with Boston Globe columnist Renee Graham. Renee writes about everything, so I expect that we'll talk about a little bit of everything as we tackle a number of trending topics today. But we commence today's show with Mark Riley, on whose radio show I appeared countless times when my broadcast career was just starting to flower and flourish a few decades ago. He has had a remarkable media career, including co-hosting the morning drive show Morning Sedition. I always loved that title, that name, Morning Sedition, on Air America Radio, alongside stand-up comic Mark Maron. Mark left New York City for Brighton, England, in the UK, which he now calls home, and I am pleased to welcome Mark Riley from across the pond to this program. Mark, how are you today, sir?
Tavis, my brother, how you doing?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing remarkably well. I am delighted to hear your voice, and you sound like you're in the studio, not across the pond, man.
Yeah, technology is something else. But before we get started, I want to tell people a story about Tavis that I know he would not tell.
Oh, Lord.
All right. Yeah.
I'm bracing myself. Go ahead. I'm braced.
Oh, no. This is a really good thing. I remember, I'm not sure if you remember, but I was trying to get to BET down in Washington to talk to Jesse Jackson. I think it was on your show. I'm not sure. But I know you were in the studio at BET. So I got there very late. It was like 11 o'clock. The cabbie I had refused to stay because I said if I missed Reverend Jackson, I'd have to go back to my hotel. No such luck. The guy split, right? You come out after the show's over. And I said, Tavis, I'm stuck, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know whether the trains were still running. Tavis said, come on, jump in my limousine or car, whatever. But you had a driver. That I do remember. And he took you back to your hotel, and then you told him, take Mark wherever he needs to go. And I have never, Tavis, ever forgotten that act of generosity on your part.
No, you were too kind. I remember those days well. I had a driver at BT for all the years I was there. His name was Frank. Frank has since retired from driving and moved back to his native Jamaica. But his name was Frank, and he took care of me for all the years I was on BET, because I was on BET. Some backstory to Mark's story. I have always lived, for most of my life, in Los Angeles at least. And my BET years, those 5 years, were spent in Washington. So I literally flew millions of miles over 5 years, flying back and forth between D.C. and L.A., kind of like Tom Joyner. That's how Tom became the fly jock, right? I mean, Tom Joyner, it's a fascinating story. So I'm going to follow Mark through this entire hour, as I always do. So now he's got me pivoting, so we'll pivot and we'll come back. So for those who don't know how Tom Joyner got the nickname the fly jock, this is instructive and informative for black people. And for America, because it shows us how much harder we have to work. All of our parents told us you got to work twice as hard to be twice as good. At the time, decades ago, there was no black person syndicated in radio. We'll talk about radio, progressive radio, Air America, Mark's career in this hour. But at the time, there had been nobody black syndicated in commercial radio. And to prove to the good white folk that a black person could do this, Tom Joyner literally flew every day from Dallas to Chicago and back to Dallas. He did the morning show on Dallas radio, flew to Chicago when he got off the air to do the afternoon show, flew back to Dallas that night to do his morning show the next day. He did that for 7 years. 7 years, racked up millions of frequent flyer miles. And when Tom finally could prove to people after 7 years of doing this, others who don't look like us had long been syndicated. But it took Tom to do this to prove that it could be done in morning radio by a black person successfully. So when Tom finally gets his nationally syndicated program with the ABC radio networks, American Airlines literally pulled both of those seats. He flew the same seats, Mark, every day, as you know. They pulled both of those seats out of those two planes. Literally, they pulled the first class seats out of both planes and gave them to Tom as a gift. And whenever you went to the Tom Joyner studios, the chairs in his lobby that you would sit in, waiting to go live on his show, were the two seats from American Airlines, the two flights, out of which they pulled those two seats. But that's how Tom got nicknamed the Fly Jock. The story isn't so much about Tom as it is about what it takes for us to prove to people that we, too, can do what others have done just as well. And so Tom Joyner kicks it off, and then you get everybody coming in after Tom. You get Steve Harvey these days, and Ricky Smiley, and there's a long list of names, the D.L. Hughley, all kinds of folk now, who are Amanda Seals and others who are hosting syndicated shows. But it started with Tom Joyner proving to folk that it could be done, but it took him millions of miles and 7 years to prove that. In this hour, I'm delighted to have my friend Mark Riley to talk about radio and why this progressive network, Air America, started so strong but didn't survive. I said a moment ago, it may have been ahead of its time, but Mark was there from the early days. He has a remarkable career. He is, of course, a political analyst, so a lot to talk about in this hour with our guest, and I'm pleased to have him, Mark Riley, on Tavis Smiley.
From Lamert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
Head to Dodger Stadium Wednesday, April 3rd, when the Dodgers host the Giants at 7:10 p.m. The first 40,000 fans in attendance will receive an adult hooded zip-up sweatshirt presented by Bank of America. Visit Dodgers.com/promotions.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste, so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. CordellCordell.com.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Mark Riley, former Air America morning host, talking in this hour, I should say, about the legacy of the Progressive Radio Network 20 years after its launch. Before I do that, let me just return the favor. It's not even a favor. It's return the sentiment, is a better word, to Mark Riley. He shared the story moments ago about me giving him a ride home one night when he was stuck at BET. And given where BET was located, if you know Washington, D.C., when you stuck there, you are really stuck. There ain't nothing coming by there late at night by those railroad tracks. The folk listening to us right now in D.C. are laughing, I'm sure, at that. They know exactly what I'm talking about. Ain't nothing moving over there. My first question, Mark, is that did you connect with Reverend Jackson that night? That's the first thing. Did you actually make your connection with him?
I missed him. He had left just before you came out of the studio.
Oh, man, I'm sorry about that.
I saw his car disappear into the night. But, I talked to him a bunch of times.
I know you did.
Reverend and I had a really great relationship for an awful lot of years.
Yeah.
And, again, not a strange story, just a story. I was down for the NABOB convention one year, and the L'Enfant Plaza Hotel in D.C.
Oh, yeah.
And I was walking across the lobby, and Reverend Jackson was walking in the opposite direction with his usual entourage.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees me because I was actually dressed up for a change, and he freezes. And he stares at me and says, Riley, you're dressed up. I said, yeah, Reverend, please. No, please don't embarrass me in front of a lobby full of people. But, you know, that's how he was. He always had a really fast, funny quip, and I loved the man.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm going to follow you throughout this hour. What since you raised his name, what do you make of the legacy of one Jesse L. Jackson Sr.? And I ask that in part because, as we all know, he is battling Parkinson's. I talked to him not too long ago, and he's more and more difficult to understand him now. On a good day, you can get most of what he's saying. But that Parkinson's is starting to ravage his body in a variety of ways, which is the nature of the disease. Sadly, Parkinson's only goes in one direction, right? Only goes in one direction, downhill.
For sure.
Yeah, but I'm asking, because you talked to him so many times, what you think of his legacy, number one. My sense is that I don't think, matter of fact, on this program, I guess a couple months ago now, we spent an hour talking about the 40th anniversary of his major speech at the DNC when he ran for president. We spent some time talking about that. But what's your sense of his legacy, particularly in light of what he's going through now, and in light of the fact that the Democratic convention will be likely for the last time in his lifetime in his hometown of Chicago come August?
Well, you know, I look at Jesse Jackson from many different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to being obviously a civil rights leader, a person who broke an awful lot of ground, a man who ran for president twice. I was at both of those conventions when he ran.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people forget that Jesse Jackson was really instrumental in freeing people who were held captive in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, was a huge, huge part of his legacy that a lot of people may have forgotten. But this was some extraordinary activity on the part of what was then a private citizen.
Yeah.
You know, in too many cases, we tend to forget, particularly in the Black community, some of the gigantic things that our people do that aren't necessarily, because in this case, these hostages, these people that were being held were not Black people,
Mm-hmm.
but Jesse Jackson went and got them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to realize that this man was, first of all, an internationalist on a level that very few other Black people were. Muhammad Ali, rest his soul, was an internationalist. And you know, there are not that many other people, but Jesse Jackson certainly fit that category.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm thinking of those persons in the Middle East who he rescued. I'm thinking of was it Lieutenant Robert Goodman? He got released.
Yes.
And others.
Yes.
At one point, if you were captured anywhere and you wanted to get released, you better call Jesse Jackson. Don't call Ghostbusters. Who you gonna call? You better call Reverend Jackson, because he was awfully good at that sort of negotiation. And I hope when that time comes, he'll be remembered fondly for all that he did do. You know this well. I repeat again, because whenever his name comes up, I have to always do this when you talk about politics. Just make the point once again: there is no Barack Obama if there is no Jesse Jackson, because Jesse Jackson is the one that pushes the issue of proportional vote taking, delegate taking, rather than winner take all.
Yes.
And so in the race between Hillary and Barack Obama, had it been winner take all, Hillary would have beaten Barack Obama. He would have not have become the Democratic nominee. But Jesse Jackson forces that rule change so that there is, in fact, proportional voting. And in that regard, he paves the way, opens up the door for one Barack Hussein Obama to become the celebrated first African-American president of these United States. And so we owe Jesse Jackson a debt that in many respects we can never repay. And I've just always felt that whatever one thinks of him, he's not gotten the respect he truly deserves. And sometimes that doesn't happen until you're dead, sadly.
Yeah.
It's just true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I hope that in the years to come, he will get more of the respect that he deserves for all that, in fact, he has accomplished. That said, you mentioned a couple of things I want to interrogate. As I said, I'm going to follow you throughout the hour. One, you mentioned the Middle East, and I mentioned, secondly, that you make your home now in the UK. When you called me one day, a while ago, and told me that you had moved to the UK, I was like, hold up. I was as surprised that you'd moved to the UK as Jesse was when he saw you dressed up in that lobby. I did not. Hold up. When I think of you when I think of New York, I think of some people that are quintessentially New York. You are quintessentially New York City. Spike Lee is quintessentially New York City. There's some folk I just always connect with New York City. Your radio career in New York City and beyond is legendary. As I said earlier, when my career was just getting started, Mark Riley was kind enough to have a young Tavis Smiley on his radio program a number of times, so I owe a debt of gratitude to Mark Riley for giving me a platform to be heard in New York and nationally. Long before y'all knew who I was, Mark Riley figured out who I was and what I had to offer and what I could do, and gave me a platform, and for that I'm forever grateful. That said, why are you in the UK and not New York City?
Actually, Tavis, she's upstairs. My wife. My wife of 31 years is from North London.
Yeah.
A neighborhood called Crouch End.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was at the end of my working career, because the last 6 years of my working career, I didn't work in radio.
Mm-hmm.
I worked actually for two different labor unions, 1199 SEIU, which is to me the most fabulous union ever.
Mm-hmm.
Represents 500,000 people. Is led by a guy named George Gresham, who is an extraordinary human being. Tavis, one of the things I have to point out here is that I had a career that began in 1973 and ended in 2019. And during that entire period, I worked for nobody but Black people. I'm not sure there's that many folks. I mean, you obviously have employees, so some people are going to start probably surpassing where I was. But I worked all those years for nothing but Black people. Also, the Correction Officers Benevolent Association. I was their communications director. So, when it came time to get ready to retire, my wife had been for a long time saying she wanted to go back to England. She came to the States when she was about 15, 16 years old. And, she wanted to go back to the United Kingdom. And, I had been here quite a few times, really enjoyed it. And I said to myself, well, it wouldn't be that great a reach for me. The language is the same. I met an awful lot of really good people. And the important thing for me was, as I get old, the healthcare, man. You can't get past the fact that they have an NHS here that they do not have in America. And, I have been treated many, many times over the years. My daughter was treated once when a picture frame in a hotel room we were staying in fell on her head, and we had to go get her stitches. And when I went for my wallet to pay the people, they said there's no charge. Well, I had never experienced anything like that before in my entire life. So all of those factors put together, my absolute love for my wife, and the fact that Brighton is not a bad place. Parts of it remind me of San Francisco, which is my second favorite city in America. And part of it reminds me, the neighborhood we live in, which is called North Lane, reminds me of the East Village of New York City. So I'm right at home.
I hear that. I hear that, and I feel that. And as long as you're happy, I'm happy. As they say, if you like it, I love it. I just want you to be happy, Mark Riley. Even though I can't see you or hug you like as often as I'd like, if you're happy, then I'm happy. As I said, I'm going to follow you throughout this entire conversation. When you, I want to get back to working with these Black folk in a second here, but let me just do this first. When you talk about healthcare and what they have in the UK that we don't have here, we made some progress during the Obama years with Obamacare. I pushed the president hard, and people were mad at me, saying I was too tough on the president and I was an Obama hater. I really wasn't. I love that brother. I voted for him twice, like all the rest of y'all did. But I was pushing him on a number of things, including this healthcare bill, because he starts out, talking about universal healthcare. And frankly, my angst and anger all these years has been more at his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, than Obama, but Obama allowed it to happen. And that is that in this debate about health care, Rahm and other folk in the White House were so desperate in the early stages to get some points on the scoreboard, they started negotiating against themselves. And I believe if they'd held out, and you remember now when they first got elected, they had both houses of Congress. And so I thought at some point they didn't flex the way they should have, the way Donald Trump would have flexed had he been president. They didn't flex enough. They started to negotiate against themselves, and they watered down this commitment to universal health care that became Obamacare. Now, I ain't mad at him. We got something, and something is better than nothing. And so I get that argument. But at the end of the day, I think they could have gotten more. Here you come now telling this story about healthcare in the UK, which leads me to ask this broad question, not just about healthcare, but about everything, about politics writ large, about life writ large. When you are an African American and you're on the outside of this country critiquing it through a different lens, what do you see? And I ask that, Mark, because I've said many times that, how might I put it? When you're on the parade, when you're on the float, rather, you can't really see the parade. When you're on the float, you can't see the parade. But when you step off the float, you can see the parade. What's my point? When you get outside of America, you see it through a different lens. So I pass the mic to you. From where you sit now, when you look back at America as a black man, what do you see?
I see a country that has a substantial number of people who are unfortunately deluding themselves. And I can't be anything but blunt about this. They have decided to support, not just with their voices, but with an extraordinary amount of money, a common grifter who wants to be president for a second time. I first covered Donald Trump in 1975. I was 2 years in to my radio career. You know why I ended up covering him then?
Why?
Because he had to sign a consent decree. He and his father signed a consent decree saying that they would stop discriminating against African Americans in one of their housing complexes, Trump Village in Brooklyn. Now, 3 years later, they had to sign a second consent decree. That's when I knew. And by the way, after he signed the first one, he went to every media outlet in New York and proclaimed victory. That should have told me something that I learned later on about him. And that is, he doesn't perceive himself as losing at anything, which is why he continues to say he won the 2020 election. That's perfectly aligned with Donald Trump. And it amazes me, utterly amazes me, that so many people in the United States, and even some black people, inexplicably, back this man for the presidency. He is so unfit as to be, for me, almost comical. Now, we have some clowns over here in the UK too, don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But this is a situation, and I'll be honest with you. There are two people, one of whom, by the way, I work with at Air America, who are running for the presidency, who fascinate me more than Donald Trump or Joe Biden. One, I know you know, Cornel West.
Oh, yeah.
The other is Bobby Kennedy Jr., who, quiet as is kept, worked at Air America. And I got to know at Air America. Actually, I played soccer against him when we were both in high school, but that's a whole other story. These two people have a radically different way of looking at America that utterly fascinates me, being outside of America.
Hold that
you know
thought.
What I mean?
I do know what you mean. I'm fascinated. I'm inside of America. I was just with Dr. West this weekend, as a matter of fact. And so we'll talk about that. Again, there's so much to unpack with Mark in this hour, and I hadn't even gotten to Air America yet. We've mentioned it a few times, but it's been 20 years since this progressive radio network, Air America Radio, first launched. Mark was there from the very beginning, co-hosting their morning show, Morning's Edition, with Mark Maron, who we all know these days. Again, all the names of people who had Air America then, who America didn't necessarily know so well, but came to know better. Al Franken, Rachel Maddow, Mark Maron, Chuck D, of course, was already out with music, but he was there as well. So was Mark Riley. We'll talk more about that. And I've got other things I want to get to. He mentioned working for black folk for his entire career. That is unheard of. We'll talk about that part and a great deal more. Our guest is Mark Riley, and I'm glad about it. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Monday with us. It is April the 1st. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest. California's new $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers takes effect today. Democrats in the state legislature passed the law last year. It was supported by the trade association representing fast food franchise owners. We're now learning Dallas, Texas police are searching for Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice as they investigate an accident. A car that is registered or leased to the African-American athlete was involved in a 6-car crash Saturday night. An early investigation shows 2 cars were speeding in the far left lane when they both lost control and caused a chain reaction crash. Now, it isn't currently known if Rice was present at the scene or if he is facing any charges. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC is one game away from going to the Final Four in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. They haven't been there since 1986. Juju Watkins and the Trojans meet up with UConn tonight in the Portland Regional Final. The winner goes to Cleveland for the Final Four. 6 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. Before USC and UConn, the game of the year in women's basketball jumps off in the Albany Regional Final in New York. LSU and Iowa, a rematch of last year's national championship game and a showdown between the game's top 2 stars, LSU's Angel Reese and Iowa's Caitlin Clark. 4 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. LeBron had a career-high 9 3-pointers in the Lakers win in Brooklyn. LeBron finished with 40 points. The Clippers got 41 from Paul George to help get a win at Charlotte. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Helping to broaden your political and moral imagination with our 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Head to Dodger Stadium Wednesday, April 3rd, when the Dodgers host the Giants at 7:10 p.m. The first 40,000 fans in attendance will receive an adult hooded zip-up sweatshirt presented by Bank of America. Visit Dodgers.com/promotions.
That was another way I would smoke once an hour. That didn't work either. All that would happen at some point of the day, I would end up doubling up. Other ways that I tried to quit was I stopped buying cigarettes totally. But if I took 3 puffs off of 15 friends, those didn't count because they weren't my cigarettes and they weren't full cigarettes. You know, I went through a lot.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk, too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Oh, this cold.
Honey?
Honey?
Honey, you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Now I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Back to more of Mark Riley right now on Tavis Smiley. Just thrilled to be in dialogue with our friend and brother Mark Riley, who joins us from on the other side of the pond in the UK. Left New York for the UK because his wife told him to. And I ain't mad at him. Happy wife, happy life. That's what they say, right? So,
Absolutely.
So I ain't mad at you. Let me get back again. Watching my time is getting away. I could talk to you for hours because it's been so long since we've had a chance to do this, and I'm just thrilled about it. Let me just cover a few more things right quick. You mentioned Cornel West and Bobby Kennedy. I was with Dr. West this weekend. Of course, as you know, he's my dear friend and brother. Bobby Kennedy, I know I wouldn't call us friends, but there's great debate in this country, as you well know, about independent parties, about third-party candidates. And I've had all kinds of back and forths with people about this particular issue. I ain't got to color it much more than that for you. What do you make of a third-party candidate in this moment? Because you know the rhetoric that Cornel West or Bobby Kennedy could be responsible, they say, for letting Donald Trump, who you covered earlier in your career, get reelected to that second term you referenced earlier.
Tavis, as far as I'm concerned, that is a straw dog, a boogeyman, and to me, somewhat nonsensical.
Okay.
Now, I know a lot of people in your listening audience may disagree with me, but here's my thing.
Give it to me.
I don't believe that any political party, least of all Democrats and Republicans, can say to someone who wants to run for the presidency outside of their parties, outside of their systems, you got no business doing that because you're going to elect somebody else. I think that is utter nonsense. Mm-hmm. This is I can't say this is America because I'm not in America, but
I'll say it for you. This is America, Mark Riley. This is America.
That's right. And I think that anybody who wants to run should run. I don't care what the final outcome is. Make your case. If Joe Biden believes that he's the best person to be president, make the case and win the election. Don't put it on somebody else not to run so you can win. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There is, and people push back on me when I say this, but there is an arrogance, there is a pomposity that comes along with thinking you own these votes. The Republicans don't own these votes. The Democrats don't own these votes. And here's the funny part. I had Doug Brinkley, the great presidential historian, in studio a few weeks ago. And he and I went back and forth on this. He eventually conceded that I was right about my point. And my point to him was, Mark, that he and others in the mainstream media ought to stop using the term spoiler. I hate that word spoiler. Cornel West is not a spoiler. Bobby Kennedy is not a spoiler. Here's my point. When the Democrats lose to Republicans and Republicans lose to Democrats, they never call each other spoilers.
No, absolutely.
Donald Trump is not president right now because Joe Biden was a spoiler. But they never call each other spoilers. But if somebody from outside of those two parties calls it runs, to your point, then they call them a spoiler. So just the language itself, the arrogance that nobody else can run but you is problematic. Now, I'm not naive. I understand that Donald Trump represents an existential threat to this country. I get that. But here's my other problem. There is never a good time. If you ask Republicans and Democrats, there ain't never going to be a good time for a third-party candidate. So it's sort of a red herring, is it not?
It is a red herring. And let me tie this into something that happened. It was a very brief incident when I was at Air America.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the 2004 presidential race when John Kerry lost to G.W. Bush.
Mm-hmm.
And one Democratic operative turned to me and said, "Well, you're with us, aren't you?" I said, "Excuse me." Yeah, well, I mean, you're African American. You got to be with us. And I just found, as you just mentioned, that kind of statement, and more importantly, that kind of thinking, to be just so incredibly arrogant. I really wish somebody else had run against Kerry. And by the way, I was told by somebody, not a black person, I was told by somebody that Kerry would lose by 3 million votes. That was 2 weeks before the election. And guess what? He lost by 3 million votes.
Yeah. See, my thing is now, I will hasten to add this, with all due respect to my friend Cornel West and others. I do believe that people have a right, a constitutional right. If you're 35 years of age and older and you're an American citizen, you can run for president. It's true for you, me, and anybody listening right now. You can run too. And people should not tell you in a nation that believes in free speech that you can't do what you want to do. Having said that, I will also add, Mark, that I believe that too many people get this thing wrong. I do not believe that you can build a third party successfully from the top down. That is to say, you can't just jump in at the level of the presidential race and think that you can just win. I think if we're going to have true third, fourth, fifth parties in this country, they have to be built from the ground up, and that's what I don't see happening enough. It's got to be ground up. It can't be top down. That's my view.
No, it can't be top down. And actually, I had some conversations with George Gresham at 1199 to say to him that, in my judgment, it is time for progressives, and I know I'm talking to one, to really organize from the ground up a political convention similar to CPAC, where you get people from labor unions, you get women. And as a matter of fact, I said to him that women needed to actually run such a convention, given their history. But I think that there has to be an inclusive, ground up, organically integrated convention where progressive people can thrash out their differences, develop policy positions, and develop ways forward to expand the base of progressive people. And that has to come from the progressive grassroots, not from the top, but from the progressive grassroots.
We agree on that. And that's an example of the kind of conversation, the kind of, I think, out-of-the-box thinking that we were getting from the Air America Radio Network 20 years ago when it launched. So when we come forward, I want to ask Mark the penultimate question, which is why he thinks Air America Radio did not survive. I know there's no one answer to that question, but talk radio has been and is right now, and for the foreseeable future, I suspect will remain what I call a conservative citadel. Trust and believe. I'm cutting against the grain every single day. The stations that carry this program across the country right now are cutting against the grain. I believe that black media in particular is more necessary and more relevant now than ever before. Why? As I always say, there's some questions that don't get asked and we don't ask them. Some issues that don't get raised and we don't raise them. And some folk doing great work that don't get profiled if we don't profile them. Now more than ever, there is a need for the black media. But writ large on the progressive platform, why is it that conservative talk radio works so well and that Air America did not survive? Was it ahead of its time? We'll get Mark's take on that and a few other things when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vid. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Tax Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. This tax season, you get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data and a new Samsung Galaxy A15 for just $99. So you can give your janky phone to your kid. Yeah! Good talk.
Switch to Straight Talk for plans starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Device offer ends 4/14/24. In-store activation on single Silver Unlimited plan or higher required. Family plan discount with 4 lines all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
It's a celebration of a living legend. It's the Farewell Tour. It's Maze featuring Frankie Beverly.
Thank you for the love,
Also featuring the soul icon, Anthony Hamilton. Plus, After 7. It's a Mother's Day celebration, May 12th in the Kia Forum. In commemoration, come in your all white. Get tickets at Ticketmaster. Presented by the Black Promoters Collective.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Mark Riley, I was just having a spirited conversation in the hallway here at the studio about how wrong you and I are about this third party point of view. They were not buying our argument that it's arrogant, that it may be strategic. That was the argument in the hallway. That it can be both strategic and arrogant. So people may be arrogant to say that Cornel West and Bobby Kennedy shouldn't run, but it's also strategic. And they keep making that same Ralph Nader argument. I've heard that argument so many times. I had Ralph Nader on this program a few weeks ago. How do you respond when people make that Ralph Nader argument? Had Nader not been in the race, that Gore might be president? I don't buy it, but what's your argument?
My argument is Gore should have been better. It's as simple as that. If the person you want to win doesn't win, and there's a third-party candidate, that says that his infrastructure, the people he had running his communications, the people he had on the ground talking to folks, which is an important yet neglected part of the political process. I don't care what you're running for. You know, Tavis, in New York, you have a city council with 51 members that represent hundreds of thousands of people, each council member. Mm-hmm. You know what the number is that you can win a council seat in the Bronx?
Probably 5,000 votes.
2,000.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, see, you've got to, if you want to build anything from the ground up, you've got to engage those people, period.
Yeah.
And to say, well, either black people, 92% of black people voted for the Democratic Party or this one, or you're supposed to be with us. No, I reject that. And I'm a lifelong Democrat.
Yeah.
But I still say that first, I'm a small D Democrat before I'm a big D Democrat.
There you go.
I believe that you have to have, the ability in a democracy to float third-party candidates with some strength. And that takes work. And a lot of times people are simply not willing to do the work, period.
You and I are simpatico. I'm a lifelong Democrat too, big D, but I'm a small D Democrat first. And my response to the Ralph Nader argument is simply this. Had Al Gore made better decisions about that recount in Broward County in Florida and not told the aforementioned the prior mentioned Jesse Jackson to stay out of Florida? You remember that? Al said, stay out. If you'd not been, speaking of arrogance, if Al Gore had not been so arrogant as to tell Jesse Jackson to stay out of Florida and they'd recounted those votes in Broward County, Al Gore would be president. He made a strategic mistake in the recount. And so it ain't just Ralph Nader's fault that Al Gore is not president. They didn't handle that recount right. That the hanging chads and the Supreme Court gets in and they choose George Bush as president. I digress on that point. Mark, tell me, well, I'm watching my clock here. We'll do it as soon as we come forward. I want to know about Air America and why you think this progressive network, speaking of progressive politics, why it did not last. You're listening to Mark Riley on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
The Supplemental Security Income Program provides monthly payments to help meet basic needs, like putting food on the table, paying the rent, or buying new shoes for growing feet. You may qualify if your income and financial resources are low and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. Call 1-800-772-1213 or go to ssa.gov/SSI to start to apply. Produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is here with the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about our full regimen of products.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops. I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard Mama hates anyway?
Since 77. I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin Ultra Soft on the party, less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The grip is always soft. It's our party vibe. She's cushioning things so our cheeks feel fly. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Mark Riley. I've got 5 minutes left, Mark. I can do this for 5 hours. Tell me, as you look back on Air America, we'll talk to Chuck D coming up in our next hour about his views of Air America. He was there when it started. What's your view of Air America in the rearview mirror?
This is a complicated question for me, Tavis, so I'm going to put it as quickly as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
One, Air America's money, as they used to say uptown, wasn't right from the very beginning. That's number one. But more importantly than that, Air America Radio had a blind spot. They didn't understand that in order to appeal to a broad base of progressive folks, you had to have Black people, Latino people, Asian people, not just in on-air positions, but in positions of authority,
yes,
decision makers. There was one guy who ran that network who understood that, a guy named Danny Goldberg, who's a friend of mine to this day. I had a one-on-one conversation with Danny. I said, Danny, this network is not going anywhere until you get more Black voices on the air, not just me. You can fire me tomorrow. Just get another Black person, that's all. And more people from diverse backgrounds on the air here. Without that, you're never going to do this with just progressive white people. That's what does my heart so good about what you're doing, by the way, because I don't know if you've ever heard Gil Scott-Heron's last album, which was titled I'm New Here. And there was a song on, actually the title song, where he says, turn around, turn around, turn around. You may come full circle and be new here again. Now, I don't process information the way most people do, but to me, that mirrors what happened to Air America and the ascent of what you're doing, Tavis.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, but we agree again on this issue. I love my progressive white friends, but sometimes they have the worst blind spots. It reminds me of King's words, right? King had some strong words for white progressives even then, because sometimes they just have blind spots, even though they're trying to do the right thing against all the odds, just blind spots, and sometimes it's you just got to call it out, right? And you just did. In the few minutes I have left, I want to circle back to this point you made earlier about the unusual experience you had working from 1973 to 2019, but always doing it for Black folk. How is that possible in a media space?
Well, first of all, it was possible because of a visionary by the name of Percy Ellis Sutton.
Percy Sutton?
Who, yes.
The chairman.
Yeah. He founded Inner City Broadcasting.
Yeah.
He gave an intern slot to a green kid from the street. That would be me. And I went from intern to news writer to editor to managing editor to program director to talk show host. I filled virtually every job there was to do on a talk radio station. And I loved every minute of it. I loved him. I love his legacy to this day. And of course, after that, I went to WWRL, which was run by a gentleman by the name of Sid Small, who's no longer with us, another brilliant, visionary human being. And then, of course, as I mentioned, I worked for two different labor unions, both of whom were headed by Black people. Yeah. And for me, it didn't dawn on me, I'll be honest with you, Tavis, it didn't dawn on me right away that I was in any way, shape, or form unique in having worked for so many Black people. But when I got to the end of my time at 1199, which was the last job I had before I retired, I said to myself, my God, I worked for all of these Black people, and all of these Black people were visionaries. They understood what it was to have a situation, particularly in media, where Black voices could be heard and could act. And I always felt this was something I tried to do, to be the voice for the voiceless. Because when I started working in talk radio, Black people were voiceless. Unless they went to the mainstream, they were utterly voiceless. And we started airing different opinions. We got way out in front of the Central Park 5 case, protested their innocence for a long time, and now one of them's on the New York City Council.
Absolutely. No, you've done some great work. I started this conversation where I want to end it, and that is with a tribute to you and all that you've done in this media space and labor space for so many years. And you have earned your semi-retirement in the UK. And I've enjoyed this immensely, so much so that we got to do it again. 1 hour does not do justice to all that you've done. And moreover, as we move through this election year, I'm putting this out there now, so long as your wife allows you to do it every now and again. I would love to talk to you about the way this presidential race is being covered internationally. You have a different vantage point, given that you're in the UK as a brother. I would love to talk to you a few times between now and November, if that works for you, Mark Riley.
You got it, Tavis. You know, when you want me, you got me. I appreciate the time with you today.
I will take you up on that. I appreciate the time with you even more. Mark Riley, who was there at Air America Radio when it got started, when it launched 20 years ago. Fortunately, Chuck D joins us in hour two to talk a bit more about this and some other political issues. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Monday with us. It is April the 1st. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest. California's new $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers takes effect today. Democrats in the state legislature passed the law last year. It was supported by the trade association representing fast food franchise owners. We're now learning Dallas, Texas police are searching for Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice as they investigate an accident. A car that is registered or leased to the African-American athlete was involved in a 6-car crash Saturday night. An early investigation shows 2 cars were speeding in the far left lane when they both lost control and caused a chain reaction crash. Now, it isn't currently known if Rice was present at the scene or if he is facing any charges. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Ray Richardson.
USC is one game away from going to the Final Four in the NCAA women's basketball